High in the Swiss Alps, we're in the Engadine Valley and on the road between St. Moritz and Celerina in the valley below it. For over 100 years, men have been racing sleds for fun, for bets, and now for the World Championship gold medal as we are at the oldest artificial ice track in the world. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, Olympic brakeman Kurt Tomasevich, ready for the fourth and final heat of the Bauhaus FIBT two-man bobsleigh World Championships. And Kurt, this track is often regarded as one of the most demanding. One of our Korean competitors earlier showed just why.
Yep, he definitely had a little problem coming out of Horseshoe, felt that second pressure and wasn't able to steer off safely.
Well, Horseshoe, the signature corner here, always requires a good line to get speed. One of the big surprises in the third of our four heats was the performance of Thomas Florschutz. He came steaming up the order to lay down a challenge to our top three. He lies in fourth position, but he's one of a group of half a dozen sleds that could yet claim a medal. It's unlikely that he's going to have more than Stephen Holcomb to battle with, though. Holcomb, lying in third place, has never finished higher than fourth here in St. Moritz in any form of racing, and holding on to an overnight third position and to try and hang on to a medal will be his focus. But Kurt, for your teammate Steve, trying to get up to Beat Hefty in second position looks unlikely. Yeah,
Beat Hefty has a great start time no matter where he's pushing. But on this track, he's especially dangerous because of so many trips that he's had down this track.
Well, Hefty nearly 6/10 in front of the bronze medal position at the moment. He lies in second spot. A Swiss win here would be one for the fairy tales because he's going to have to chase down this young German. A third of a second clear after 3 runs. The junior world champion in two-man and four-man Francesco Friedrich, just 2 months after winning that title, may add the senior crown to his already bulging portfolio. The German coaches think he is an exceptional young talent, and it may well prove to be the case. Fastest man in the third heat was Canada's Lyndon Rush, who closes up on teammate Chris Spring behind Alexander Zubkov in that battle, potentially for a bronze medal position. And 20 fastest sleds from the third heat go through into the fourth, final and deciding run. Of the 38 who started on Saturday, the remainder will be merely interested spectators. Patrice Sabel of Monaco stays in the top 20, and as they go 20 down to 1, last to fast to decide the medals, he will be the first man to get the final run underway here in beautiful St. Moritz. Well, Kurt, the weather could hardly be better. With the sun out, it feels more like +5 than -5, and the track -12 degrees, hard, fast, and unforgiving.
The track will be blistering fast with cold conditions and sunny conditions at the same time. It's, approaching mid-morning right now, and so that track is really going to speed up.
Well, you can see the start list there with Patrice Sabel, John Jackson and Oskars Kibermanis, the young Latvian, the first 3 sleds on the ice, which means a wait of about an hour extra now for Francesco Friedrich and his brakeman Janis Becker before they go to defend their 3-heat lead and to try and grab the medal. But he has got such commendable sang-froid that it seems unlikely that he is ever going to waver, and he will have to park the sled hard to give away his lead. In the process, he may become our youngest ever world champion. We will have to wait and see how that works out. 38 sleds started the competition from 25 different nations, from every corner of the globe, from hot and cold weather nations. And now we are down to the nitty-gritty, the final 20. You can see in the background all the sleds, the fans, some of the athletes already making their way out to the start position. And they're all battling for the Max Huben Trophy, named after one of Belgium's great bobsleighers of the 1930s and 40s. And that two-man trophy returned to the organising committee by its holder, Stephen Holcomb, a couple of days ago. Here we go then, lots of tension at the top of the track to get the fourth and final run of the 2013 Bobsleigh World Championships underway for the two-man bob is the sled of Monaco. Patrice Sabel, the driver, Elie Lefort, the brakeman, I'm Martin Haven, alongside me Kurt Tomasevich. Kurt, a 5.4 start, a long way shy of what they've done so far.
Yep, Ellie LaFleur in the back of that sled. I think his right hand actually slipped off the back of the sled as he was pushing in his first couple steps. That cost him approximately about 0.05 of a second because they pushed a 5:35 in the first heat. Third heat, excuse me.
Only the fast 20 sleds go through, so they are not in danger of dropping out of the top 20 spots, but it's unlikely they're going to make anything up unless they're handed an advantage. And this unique track, because it's a natural track built high in the mountains and retains a lot of cold, will get faster and faster as the day wears on.
Yeah, but you see those little spots right there where the sun kind of comes through the trees. Those parts of the track are going to actually be faster than the parts in the shade. That makes it very difficult for not just the driver to be able to see because it's coming in and out of the shade all the time. But there's some parts of the track that might be a little slicker than others.
Down at the bottom, we're going to be high 80s. This is 142.1 kilometers an hour, 88.3 miles an hour. We will fringe 90 miles an hour in these two-man sleds with our fastest athletes. A 107.50, a fraction slower than their last run. And a lot of that coming from the lack of momentum at the start.
Yeah, they just weren't able to recover from that slower start. Again, Ellie's left hand, I think, may have slipped off the sled just a little bit right here. Or just wasn't able to transition all the way through. That's what it was. I knew something just didn't look natural right there. And athletes like to transition his hands from that hold position to a push position within the first step or two, but Ellie kind of got stuck and wasn't able to make that transition.
Little tail slide down at the bottom of the track, also robbing a bit of speed. Here at the top of the track, next up is John Jackson of Great Britain, 35-year-old Royal Marine Commando from Trowbridge in Wiltshire, and his brakeman, 100-metre Olympic sprinter Craig Pickering. Craig just 3 weeks into his bobsledding career. See lots of support from their teammates at the top of the track and coach Pete Gunn. One more big start from this crew to try and move themselves up the order.
Now, in order for Pickering to improve his start time, what he really has to do is get this sled exploded off the block initially. You know, he's got great speed. That goes without saying. That's unquestionable. If he can use that speed to his advantage right here, get into the sled quickly, still a little diligent in getting into the back of the sled. And Jackson not able to control the sled as much as he'd like to right there either.
5:29 start and a 55.3 kilometre an hour first corner speed. We will see sleds going at 56, maybe 57 kilometres an hour in the first corner. So you can see the sun already on the track. That just allows the sled to run a little more freely. It's very frosty here overnight, -20 low temperature.
Regardless of a tough start time or a bad load or a bad trip, whatever it is, as long as they're in the green, that's all the driver really wants to care about. This fourth heat of the World Championships, just trying to stay ahead of your competitors that have gone down the track already, and that'll help your chances of moving out.
Doesn't have as good speed as Monaco, 105.4 kilometres an hour, 65.5 miles an hour. And now continuing to accelerate, little brush on the wall as he comes down into Martineau, named after the first chairman of the Bob Club here that was established in 1897. And they have the lead over Monaco.
Wasn't a perfect run by Jackson. His lead was up to 69/100ths of a second, but crossed the line only 59/100ths of a second ahead. So he will hold on to at least 19th place, but the chances of moving up aren't exactly great.
Well, again, it'll require some assistance from elsewhere. The signature corner here is horseshoe, and you need to dive out clean here, Kurt.
Yep, he takes that tap on the left side of the wall as he goes into telephone corner. This the reverse angle, looking at the same thing. And so many sleds have taken that hit on the left side that it's starting to form a hole in the wall there.
So Great Britain with the lead. And they move into the leader's box as Oskars Kibermanis, this young Latvian, is now up at the top of the track. Great starts. He's not been outside the top 10 starters. He took a bronze medal in the Junior World Championships at the beginning of the year. A former decathlete who came straight into the front seat as a driver. A big AC/DC fan. Well, lots of bobsledders like some heavy music to get them motivated.
You know, one of the things that sticks out to me as I look at the timing sheets is the start times for these Latvians, a 5:14 here. So their start ranks have been 6, 8, and 9. You know, that's a positive sign, but at the same time, if you have start times that are ranking that high, you shouldn't be in 17th place going into the last heat.
Well, we can see direct parallels, can't we, with his more experienced teammate Oscars Malbardis, a brakeman who transferred to the front handles after the Whistler Games and is learning how to control that speed year by year. It does take a good 3 or 4 years for a driver to really have the experience to be able to control the sled properly. Yeah,
he's very young, and that'll just come with time. A little bit of a low line coming through Horseshoe, but 0.4 of a second ahead right now.
Kibus Manis only started driving in 2011. We've only just crossed out of 2012, so very much a rookie pilot still, but some good lines here and really finding speed.
Coming out of Sachs into Martineau, his speed is 142.6 kilometers an hour. We saw much faster speeds in the first heat, but you know, again, driving isn't the strong part right now of this Latvian team. So 0.6 of a second lead over the Brits. It's a pretty good sign right now.
Well, his last slide was a 1:07.3. The one that he did earlier this morning, 1:07.3 as well. So exactly identical times, but probably with a catalogue of different errors.
But here's where their strength was. The start, you know, you can see how they can blast off the start block. Very good technique. You know, most of their movement going horizontal, pushing the sled. Coming out of Martineau, the last 2 left-hand curves and going uphill into the finish line. Takes that tap, but I think that was after the finish line. You know, so for the most part, you know, he found some of the good lines where he wanted to put the sled.
Top of the track now is Jan Stoklaska of the Czech Republic, with Jan Verber, his driver. You can see keeping his hands warm under the arms. It's still -14, -15 perhaps in the shade there. And Kurt, when you're down to the spandex, you feel the cold very quickly.
Yeah, you can see Jan getting a little bit impatient there, wanting the green light to come on. You know, he's standing out in the cold, wanting to get going. He's anxious. He's wondering what was taking so long, but you know, all the sleds are timed to the same time. There's the same amount of break between each sled. He was just a little anxious to get going.
He's been a World Cup driver for 6 or 7 seasons, only 31 years old at the end of January, so still a relative, you know, you've got another 5, 6, 7, 8 years perhaps of driving career.
I think that anxiety and anger of being a little bit impatient helped him. He improved the start time by 200ths, and his fastest start time was in this 4th heat right here.
Yeah. He's always driven this track nicely. He's got a nice, smooth touch on the sled. Through Nash and Dixon, vital to get the exit right here for Horseshoe.
Good height in Horseshoe, controls the exit into Telephone and into Shamrock.
Great speed, 1:07.3.
Yeah, very good run going for him, 0.55 of a second ahead.
Well, he's going quicker than he did in the last heat. 1:42.6 last time, 1:42.6 again, so he's drifting away a little bit, but he's still got enough to keep him comfortably in front. Half a second in front of Kibus Manis. So the Czechs will move into the leader's box with the Max Huben trophy there.
Yeah, putting a little bit of pressure on the French team that's going to be following. That was a pretty good run by Jan. There's a good chance he can move up into 16th place or even 15th place. Again, good height in Horseshoe. You can see he can get as high as possible without trying to hit that lip and cause the sled to bounce out. A little bit of hit out of Shamrock coming in on the right side, but controlled it for the most part, was able to recover.
Well, that would have knocked 1 or 2 kilometers an hour out of their top speed. They're pretty happy with that trip. Great area at the start with all the colors of nations mingling around. Let's make it a little tricky to move about, though. Next up is the French, Loic Kosterg and Roman Heinrich. And Loic, a second-year driver, started his first World Cup race in Lake Placid at the beginning of this season. Just 25 years old. He's already had an 8th place and 10th place finish in 2- and 4-man since Christmas. And this French program is really starting to gather momentum.
Yeah, for them to be in the top 20, it's a pretty good feat, especially at this World Championships where everybody's putting forth their best teams. You know, they're sitting in 16th place, so you know, I'm not exactly sure what their expectations were coming into this, but I would say that they should be pretty satisfied with where they are. But man, these little tiny mistakes will cost you. You can see coming out of kink 2, Took a little tap on the left side. He was able to straighten the sled out, but that'll cost you a little bit.
We see the mottled effect, half sun, half shade, and the coaches were saying to me last night that on those two slow straights, if you just catch a frosty patch with one runner, like hitting a patch of water on a road, it'll lead the sled in one direction. The driver doesn't want to do any steering there if he can avoid it.
Yeah, what's going to be interesting now is some of those sunspots are actually kind of shining on some of those curves and not just in the straightaways too, so that might affect how the drivers have to approach some of these curves, not just those straightaways.
French are behind at the moment. 107.2 is good speed. Let's see if he can keep it clean at the bottom and overhaul the Czech Republic. 1200s, he's closing, he's faster, 143.1. Can he get himself a top 16 finish? Can he take the lead at the line? He ducks his head, but he's 400ths of a second behind. So the Czechs celebrate, they move up. But for the French, you know, basically a standing start program in the last 2 seasons since French bobsledding was closed down effectively. These guys are exceeding all expectations. Their federation almost didn't want to let them come and compete here.
Yeah, and that would be very disappointing because I've been around for 9 years, and to see the French program finally be able to compete and also host a race, you know, in the Plan, that hasn't always been the case. You know, it's good to see another country be competitive.
Well, he's in the top 20 out of 38 sleds. Jan Verber of the Czech Republic is our leader with 15 to go. 15 sleds in St. Moritz to complete the 4th and final run of the Bauhaus FIBT two-man bobsleigh world championship. Simone Bertazzo and substitute brakeman Costantino Ughi taking over from the injured Francesco Costa overnight in the Italian sled, and trying to keep himself in the top 15, Simone Bertazzo. I'm Martin Haven alongside me, Kurt Tomasevich, Olympic brakeman from the USA. And Kurt, changing your brakeman in the middle of a competition is never the best preparation.
You know, there's a skill to riding in the back of a sled sometimes that is very much overlooked. Ughi maybe rides in the back of the sled maybe better than Constantine did, because Bertazzo had ranks of 16 and 16 in the first 2 heats. This morning in the 3rd heat, he had a rank of 12. So something overnight changed. Bertazzo is, of course, maybe able to find better lines down the track, maybe use a different set of runners, whatever it is, but something clicked this morning just a little bit better than what it did for him yesterday.
They've also got their fastest start of the competition now with a 5:19. But for Simone, the slightly greater worry is if Francesco Costa is out of the 4-man, then that's going to really hinder him. Bronze medalist in 2007 in the two-man worlds here. Samuele Romanini behind him, but he's a long way from the medals. He's in front of Jan Verber of the Czech Republic, but the gap is coming down. 1:07.1, decent speed from the Italian.
Their lead at one time was 6100ths of a second at the start, but it has increased, or excuse me, and then it was down to 4800ths of a second, but now back up to 5600ths of a second. Bertazzo cleans up the bottom part of the track, does a pretty good downtime, 1:06.58.
That's his second fastest run. So an improvement on the first heat today. Simone Bertazzo moves into the lead. Well, the speed in the shady areas down to the fast 4 corners that end the track is rising, but in the sunshine on the straight, it seems to be dropping a little.
Yeah, the sun not quite shining onto the start section of the track yet. Ughi hits that sled pretty hard. You can see him and Bertazzo have identical steps. That could help power the sled even more, but again, look at all the driving that Bertazzo has to do to keep the sled going straight.
Those little taps just rob you of so much speed. Next up, Nick Cunningham and Dallas Robinson of the USA slipped a couple of spots in the last heat, and they will be really looking to try and claw back some of that ground. Getting a little rocking motion going to get the sled unstuck from the ice. Dallas there at the back, a 10-200-meter sprinter. And Cunningham, the bull-riding surfer from Monterey, California.
You know, in the first heat, Dallas ran that sled quite a ways down the starting slope. Might have hurt their velocity a little bit, even though it might have given them a good start time. When they loaded to the sled, this time much earlier. Smoother load, great kink one. Line. Yeah, 5:19 start time compared to a 5:15 start time. But those 400ths of difference in time might be made up by the velocity that Nick might be able to control coming down here into wall.
Straight as an arrow, no flinching on the runner tips. No steering work at all from Nick Cunningham, and that was a good call to load where they did, to give them that control. Half a second up on the Italians.
Yep,
the
that's up
is
from
growing.
46 hundredths of a second to 50 hundredths of a second. And I expect that to grow even more with that good velocity.
They are 700ths of a second behind Justin Cripps of Canada. That's their target. Only about 2/10 away from a top 10 finish.
107.6 kilometers an hour, great speed.
This is a really smooth-looking drive from Cunningham.
Yeah, he was off, fairly in the middle of the pack in the first run, but didn't have near the speed that he did this run. 144.4. This track is really getting fast.
Well, he's really utilizing it as well. The National Guardsman tucks his head under the cowling there. A 106.38 slide. That is half a second quicker than their last trip down the track an hour and a little bit ago. Very nice final drive from Nick Cunningham. Happy with that. And they gelled perfectly on that final outing.
Yeah, that was a great run by Nick. The start, they improved. Again, that start velocity, maybe not that start time, but his horseshoe, that's a really good horseshoe. Good height, controls the exit without actually tapping the top of that lip.
Using that 20-foot height to dive bomb down out, and there is Nick on the left, Dallas on the right in the leader's box. Well, that throws down the gauntlet for Justin Cripps, the third of our Canadian sliders in the World Cup this season. He's got Neville right behind him. Cripps, an ex-brakeman, converted to the front seat a couple of years ago, and like so many Canadian athletes, coached by Pierre Luders, using goggles rather than a visor to avoid any problems with misting up. And here with 80-mile-an-hour sub-zero winds, that's always a factor.
Yeah, it's starting to warm up just a little bit. Most drivers won't have to worry about the visor fogging up, but Cripps really likes those goggles, likes the feel of that. Doesn't have to worry about any kind of moisture or anything getting in that visor.
26-year-old born in Hawaii, from Summerland, British Columbia, looking to try and advance his chances of getting into the top 10 as well.
Neville, a speed demon in the back of the sled, a little bit of a skid coming out of the kink, but 5:07.
Monster start. They've had 3 5:13s, and then suddenly they whip a 5:07 out of their back pockets. That shows how committed Cripps is to trying to move up.
Yeah, it's great to see in this fourth heat how hungry some of these guys are. They're not going to be battling for the medals, that's for sure, but, battling for a top 10, still being hungry and trying to improve their position.
Not battling for the medals this year, maybe, but continuing to improve. Good line up to Horseshoe, hits it high and early, but actually threads a neat exit together through telephone.
106.2, not the speed we saw from Nick Cunningham.
Gap is coming down a fraction. It was 1900s. He got up to 4/10 up. He's a quarter second up. Cunningham, 144.4 at the bottom. Cripps needs similar speed. He had 142 in the first heat. He's quicker. He should just about stay in front, but it is going to be close at the line. 1200ths of a second is the advantage.
Yeah, Nick had a great run, but just wasn't enough to catch Cripps.
Cripps 500ths of a second quicker than Cunningham, just to creep that little advantage into double digits.
What's interesting is the difference is 1200ths of a second at the bottom of the track, and over the course of 4 runs, the difference in this last start time was 1200ths of a second.
Wow. Look at Neville. He looked back to find out what the start time was. 0:07 is the answer.
I think he's wondering why he couldn't do that the first 3 runs. Yeah, the one mistake Cripps did make here that kind of opened the door a little bit for Nick was here in Horseshoe. Hit the lip really high right there, and it caused him to dive out. But like you mentioned, he threaded the needle and may turn it into a pretty good exit.
Yeah. Wild ride. The Max Huben Trophy at the top of the track is Edwin van Kalker and Sybren Jansma, the Dutch pairing. Fringes at the top 10. They're in 12th position. 10th is just some 1400ths of a second in front of them. And that might be achievable.
I talked to Edwin last night. His hamstring's been bothering him for the last week or so. They're expected to be in the 5.0s. If they're really healthy, 5:20 start the first heat, 5:14 the second heat. Excuse me, that's 4th heat now, second heat today. If they can keep that start time, that really gives Edwin an advantage coming in because he's got pretty good equipment, and he's a smart guy too. The way he ducks his head right there, he's pretty tall, but if he can duck his head coming through some of those straightaways, that decreases that disadvantage that he has.
Well, he's got a lot of confidence on this track, but you're right, he's 6'2", 210 pounds. You know, he needs to tuck himself away as much as he can, and he tries to do it on every straight. Once he knows the steer is right, he'll get his head out of sight. Great run out of Horseshoe, and that's a nice, smooth transition, but he is still in the red. This could go either way. 107.1, very close, but a little quicker than Cripps.
Yep, I think he's got the speed to do it. Now only 0.03 of a second with about 200, 300 meters left in the course.
He's flying quicker than he was in the last heat. 143.6 here last time, 143.1. Maybe not enough to close down Justin Cripps. I think Cripps is going to move up. He does. The Dutch slump a position.
Yeah, some mistake around those last 4 right-hand curves of the track around Bridge or Sachs, Leap, one of those curves that he just made some mistake because he was gaining on Cripps. He was going to pass him. He was only 0.03 of a second back at about the midway point of the track, but ended up falling back to 0.12 of a second. Another mistake he might have had was out of kink 2. Just controlling the sled just a little bit too much, trying to keep it straight, but then he ducks his head. You see him just bob under the cowling just a little bit. And here also out of the Telephone and Shamrock parts of the track and into Devil's Dyke.
Little hard exit, and all of that robs you of the odd 100th of a second. Justin Cripps of Canada is our race leader with 11 sleds to go here in St. Moritz. The Bauhaus FIBT two-man bobsleigh world champion. Eric Allard himself, a medalist in the World Championships for Switzerland in the background, coaching this Swiss team. Took over at Christmas time. Rico Pater, the driver, Seaman Friedli behind him, just keeping that sled moving. On the left, Justin Cripps, the right, Neville Wright, your race leaders, and in the center, the Max Huben Trophy since 1950 has been presented to the two-man bobsled world champion. He might yet have a Swiss name on it this season. It won't be that of Rico Pater, though, but he's going to try and bust into the top 10.
5:16 start time.
Well, good lines down the first 2 straightaways, but a little meandering. He's found a couple of grooves and the sled being led astray.
Yeah, not a bad start time compared to their first couple of heats.
29-year-old, raced occasionally in the World Cup in the last 2 seasons, but has been a consistent performer this year. Gregor Baumann, Switzerland's #2 driver, has not been healthy enough to compete. Rico with a good line, little lower line the Swiss take through Horseshoe, but look at the speed, 108 kilometers an hour, fastest we've seen in this heat.
Wow, really starting to pull away. He was 0.03 of a second back at 12, now 0.26 of a second, extending that lead.
He's really motoring now. What's he got at the bottom? 144, 145, 145.1 kilometers an hour, fastest of the heat. Tucks his head under the cowl at the line, and that's a 66-second slide dead. That's half a second quicker than his first of the day.
Yeah, 106 flat down time. Definitely looking to move up to the top 10. He's in a great position right now.
Listen to the response from the Swiss down there at the bottom and at the top when they see themselves on the camera. There's Seaman Friedli.
Yeah, really dropped that start time by 0.05 of a second. It's not an easy thing to do. You know, he's pretty consistent, 19, 23. Wow, really driving his knees high. It almost looks like he's extending too much, but man, if he can really use that high knee drive to pound into the ground, I guess that works for him. The exit out of Horseshoe, very smooth. You mentioned it was a little bit of a low line, but maybe the Swiss know a little secret there.
Yep, Swiss line working for Rico Pater there. He's in the leader's box. We have 10 sleds to go. So let's take a look at the standings then. Rico Pater of Switzerland is our race leader, halfway through the 4th and final run of the Bauhaus FIBT two-man bobsleigh world championships. Justin Cripps of Canada, Edwin van Kalker of the Netherlands lie 2nd and 3rd, tied with Nick Cunningham. We have 10 still to come.
Well, this track in Switzerland is one of my favorite tracks to slide down. It's a natural track built out of snow and ice, moved in with shovels. You know, if they spray a fine mist of water onto it to keep it icy. But this start is very tricky sometimes because it changes every year. No push athlete can get used to the same start each year. Once you get into the sled, there's two curves that really don't have a name. We call them kink 1 and kink 2, but there's such a long straightaway between kink 1 and kink 2 and the third curve, which is called wall, that the drivers really have to pay close attention to keeping that keeping that bobsled straight down the track. Wall is a very nice and easy long left-hand curve. As you come into snake, which is actually a series of two curves, a left and a right, sets you up for sunny corner, which is where the sun shines on the first part of the track in the morning. Nash-Dixon, again, a left and a right series that sets you up for the probably most famous curve on the circuit, which is horseshoe. You get a nice high line in horseshoe, drive it out straight into telephone. That takes you into Devil's Dyke in a corner we call nameless. Then there's a series of 4 right-hand curves where the drivers try to kind of catch a little bit of a rhythm. And once you come out of Sachs curve, you're hitting top speeds over 90 miles per hour. And then you hit, 2 left-hand curves, Martineau and Portago, and you cross the finish line.
And one of the things you notice most is the lack of noise. This natural track doesn't resonate like a concrete channel, and it is so fast, the fastest on tour and the most historic, like the Indianapolis 500, the Monaco Grand Prix. Top of the track in St. Moritz. Final 10 sleds to decide the 2013 Bauhaus FIBT two-man bobsleigh World Championship. 10th spot after 3 of 4 runs is Germany's Max Arndt, with Marco Hubenbecker behind him, looking to move up the order.
Arndt was only 0.02 of a second from 9th place. Really had a great second run yesterday and a decent first run today for the third heat. And he's looking pretty good now. 5:19 start time is a little bit slower than his third heat earlier this morning, but controlled the first 2 kinks and kept his start velocity still in the green.
It's a good run down through Nash and Dixon and out of Horseshoe. 56.2 kilometers an hour was good start momentum. Now he needs to add to that. Dive bombing out smoothly from Horseshoe. 0.03 of a second the advantage, though, over our leader Rico Peter of Switzerland, who had better speed.
This is going to be difficult. Well, he has extended his lead from 3 to 0.05 of a second, even though he didn't have the same kind of velocity.
Rico Peter, 145 kilometers an hour here, 145.6, 90 miles an hour and change for Max Arndt. He will stay in the top 10, and he might yet move up a spot. Not as fast a run as the Swiss, who he's just pushed out of the leader's box, who set a 106 dead, but it's enough to keep Max Arndt in the top 10. 3 German sleds in the 10.
You know, we take a 2-minute break between the 11th place team and the 10th place team as they come down the track. Those 2 minutes might have been just enough for the track to warm up just a little bit for Arndt to take advantage and go pretty quick. Little high in Horseshoe, might have tapped the wall just a little bit, but again, the higher you are, the more you can use gravity to slingshot you down. And I don't know if he did tap. That might have been close to the perfect line.
A little brush of ice there. There is Maximilian Arndt, our race leader, with 9 to go. 3 German sleds in the 10, 2 US sleds, the first of whom Corey Butner having a standout time here in the Bobsled World Championships. 8th and 7th fastest runs yesterday in the 38 sled field today. A little bit of a loose third sighter, 12th place run, and that dropped him down to 9th spot.
Yeah, it was interesting. In their first heat, the first heat this morning, the third heat of the race, they improved their start time, but Corey's downtime wasn't as good. So if he can put together both parts of the trip, I think they can have a really great finish here.
College Beer League slow pitch softball champion Corey Butner now trying to add a great final drive.
5:13 start time. It's about time Chris Fogg gave it some effort and increased that start time from 5:19. He was really upset with himself last night. But to see that, that's a great sign.
Well, there you go. That's a teammate really giving him a dragging over the coals, but it was a great start. And Corey just needs to find the touch that he had yesterday to get the speed back in that sled.
Yeah, all season long, this sled has been a great setup for him. He's taken advantage of that a few times. winning a medal, a couple medals earlier in the season. So, if he can take advantage of the great equipment, the great push he just had, put together a smooth trip, which he is right now, 28 of a second ahead, he could look to move up as well.
Good speed as well, 108.2, 67.5 miles an hour. And he's got to keep it clean here. Line needs to be precise to stop skidding and tapping, and that keeps the speed on board the sled. Are we going to 145s? Yes, we are, 145.3. Now, his target in front, Oskars Melbardis, is 4/10 away. He'll stay in front of Max Arndt, and a 105.8. That's a great trip from Corey Butner.
Corey Butner, first time to be on the World Cup circuit full-time, and to finish at the World Championships ahead of a German, that's a pretty great feat. He should be pretty proud right now.
Well, that is their fastest start and their best trip down the track in terms of time. Fastest run from Corey Butner. And that's what you should be doing, getting quicker and quicker with every trip.
Yeah, too bad they couldn't do it 3 more times in the previous runs, but again, a great start time here. You see good transition by Chris in the back of the sled. Corey, good load. Here, I think coming through Snake, just a little bit of a skid, but for the most part, it was a really good trip for him.
Of course, they were getting into those corners quicker than ever before, so it's all about adapting your skills. Next up, huge starting Latvian duo, Oskars Melbardis and Daumas Drieskins. Third fastest, third fastest, third fastest in the 3 heats. A 5:08, a 5:07, a 5:06. Curtis Tomasevich alongside me. What are they going to push now?
Well, Daumas Drieskins in the back of that sled, he is not happy with being ranked 3rd at the start. He's going to give everything he has right now. I would expect 5:03, 5:04 maybe. He's got to be more competitive at the start because his driving just isn't there yet, and he needs to drop his start time, even though it is a rank of 3. 5:01, wow. There it is.
Big effort, and we talked about how the track changes as the temperature of the air warms up, the sun gets on it, and it may just be starting to affect the start area as well.
And he did a good job of controlling the sled out of the case and keeping it straight right there, keeping that velocity that they have from a 5:01 start.
Look at the track, you can see it's matte white, except where the runners have been, which is getting a polished look to it. And that ice is getting slicker by the minute.
Just at 27 seconds in the 4th heat, he's already extended his lead by 11/100 of a second. We'll see where he is coming out of Horseshoe here, 55/100 of a second now.
1:08.1, not quite as quick as Corey Butner, but he has opened up a big half-second advantage. It'll come down. He's keeping it neat and tidy.
So far, still has the fastest run of this heat we've seen.
He had 1:44, he's 1:45 this time, 90 miles an hour. And a 1:05.66, that's 2/10 of a second quicker than Corey Butner's run. That's a good control drive from Oskars Melbardis, and again, absolutely nothing left to chance.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how these drivers are finally putting together the perfect runs in the 4th heat of this race.
Well, it's all about ice time, isn't it? 6 training runs. So your 7th run is your first in competition. Now this is their 10th run. They're bound to be tidying it up.
Yeah, there looks like to be a little bit of look of relief because it looks like they finally got some of these curves right. A little bit high still in Horseshoe, but again, pretty good speed coming out there. 108.1 kilometers an hour. That gravity can really propel you quick coming out of Horseshoe and into Telephone.
68 miles an hour, and it feels it on this track as well. Daumas Drieskins, Oskars Melbardis, the race leaders with 7 to go now. The man who was fastest in the last heat, Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden. 2 10th spot finishes in day 1, left them 10th overnight. And they moved up to 7th place, fastest on the ice in the 3rd heat. Now, if they can repeat that sort of performance, then who knows what else might follow.
One of the reasons for such the huge improvement in the 3rd heat this morning was because they increased their start time by 7/100 over the 2nd heat. Now we just saw Drieskins Melbardis improve his start time.
Same for the Canadians, 5:10, fastest.
Jesse and Lyndon improved their start time by 200s as well.
Yep, fastest of the competition. Now they were only 100th of a second in front of Oskars Melbardis as they clawed their way up the order, and they started a 10th slower, 900 slower, so they are in deficit at the moment. But if Lyndon Rush can drive the way he did in the 3rd heat, the first this morning, then that time will soon turn green.
Melbardis made a couple driving mistakes. Lyndon doesn't make many mistakes often, so he really needs to have a perfect run here in order to reel him in. He's starting to now. The lead was 1300ths of a second, now 1200ths of a second. That number should shrink.
He skidded in Nash and Dixon and Exton Horseshoe. He's still not closing. Same speed as the Latvians, a little high there. That means he has to steer hard. He needs 1:45.5. He's not got it. 1:44.5. He will drop back a spot behind Latvia. And he is in second spot. Oskars Melbardis on the right, Dauman Jeskins on the left. They stay in the leader's box.
Yeah, just didn't have as good a run as he did earlier this morning. Just some tiny mistakes up toward the top of the track. Maybe Nash, Dixon, Horseshoe. Horseshoe actually looked pretty good, so I'm not sure where those mistakes may have stood out, but...
watch him on the exit here, Kurt. He takes a little skid as he comes into telephone.
Out of Horseshoe into telephone, maybe, yep, does take that tap on the left side of the sled. You know, just tried to take that shortcut and find the fastest line, but it wasn't there.
Tail breaking away, fishtailing down the track. That third one was a golden run, but the fourth just couldn't quite match it. 6 sleds to go in St. Moritz, Switzerland for the two-man bobsleigh world championship, and the dark horse in the competition is Canada's Chris Spring. With Lascelles Brown behind him, they've had some great starts. Their slowest was 7th in the field, and some really good drives. Again, the slowest run, 7th in the field. And Jesse Lumsden there with blood on his face after a bumpy trip with Chris Spring, with Lyndon Rush.
Now, Lascelles really has to get this sled going quick because they only have a 1/10 of a second lead over Melbardis coming into this, and Melbardis dropped his start time to 5:01.
5:07.
5:07. Great start time for him.
They've had a 12, an 11, a 13, and a 0.7.
Now, it's going to be red for just a little bit, but for the most part, I think they may be able to reel in that great time that Melbardis had.
Well, 2 fifth-place runs in the first 2 heats has left him in the top 6 as the best of the Canadian sleds. The season curtailed last year by an accident in Altenburg. And he has come back so strong in this World Championships. 100th behind Melbardis, 108 kilometers an hour. This is going to be to the 100th of a second. The final right-hand 4 corners will seal it.
Wow, he's dropping back just by 100th of a second. I expected Chris to be able to reel in Melbardis, but I don't know if he has the speed on the bottom part of this track. He
can avoid a skid, 1:44.6. It's going to be very close, but I think Melbardis may move up again into the top 6. He does. 1:05.84. Melbardis controlled the speed just enough to overhaul Chris Spring, who lies second ahead of teammate Lyndon Rush.
Well, Melbardis just says, not for you today. Can't get on the podium, but wow, what a run for Chris. You know, he had some great practice times in 2-man. 4-man coming up this next week. I know he's going to be excited for. But here was what was a positive note for them. A great start time by Lascelles Brown. Not bad for an old guy. I know he's going to give me some grief for giving that comment, but you know, just didn't have the speed on the bottom part of the track. 1:44.6 kilometers an hour.
First time we pick up.
Chris Spring, Lascelles Brown in second spot. Could still end up in the top 6. 5 sleds to go here in St. Moritz. Martin Haven and Kurt Tomasevich watching the action in the 2-man bobsleigh world championships. The 4th and final heat, Alexander Zubkov of Russia lying a second off the lead is not going to win gold, but he lies 900ths out of the medal. The fight is on for bronze. Oskars Melbardis of Latvia leads with a great final drive. Zubkov, the 37-year-old veteran from Russia, with Dmitry Chenenkov, his 24-year-old brakeman, need the biggest start of their career now, perhaps.
This battle is going to be intense between Zubkov, floor shoots, and Holcomb, and it's going to start right here with the start time. They had a 5:11 in the 3rd heat this morning, a 5:06. They've really improved their start time. That's going to put pressure on floor shoots coming up next, as well as Holcomb.
Watch the sled tracking away, but watch the runner tip. Zubkov doing nothing inside the sled, not even breathing until he gets to wall. Then he can actually start to steer it.
Well in the green, you know, he's looking forward. He doesn't care what happens for 6th place behind him. He wants that bronze medal. He's 100th of a second ahead right now, but I know that number is going to increase.
Well, Melbardis was 1500ths of a second behind Zubkov after 3 heats. Zubkov still with the lead and a great exit from Horseshoe. Let's look at the speed. Oh, 107.8, not as fast as the Latvians.
That lead is now 500ths of a second, but now it's slipped to 100th of a second.
Melbarnis could pull off one of the biggest results of his career if he can claim another big scalp. Zubkov tapping on his way through. 144.2 is not enough.
Spring can move into 6th place here as well.
Zubkov could drop to 3rd spot. He does drop to 3rd spot. Chris Spring is in 2nd. Melbarnis leads. The sole Russian sled cannot even hold on to a top 5 finish in the final analysis.
Interesting. You know, he had a great start time, improved his start by 500ths of a second. I just don't understand what Zubkov did. You know, pressure,
well,
you know, he's been in pressure moments before,
but missed it up. That might have been it. It might have been that they chose runners that the track temperature has moved away from.
Maybe. I don't know what he expected with his runner setup, but again, this great start time, 5:06. Good load into the sled.
Great timing in Horseshoe. Right under that yellow marker is where you begin the dive out, but he didn't have the speed there or down the bottom of the track.
Yep, seventh fastest speed out of Horseshoe. Very disappointing for him.
Well, there's Dmitry Chenenkov and a disappointed Alexander Zubkov, whose 2 teammates were disqualified for using each other's sleds by accident yesterday. Thomas Florschutz of Germany made big inroads towards the medals with his 3rd run, with Andreas Bredau behind him, replacing Kemen Kuska, who pulled a hamstring in the 1st trip yesterday. Good exit from the 1st corner and a 5:12 getaway, the fastest that sled has seen as well.
You know, Florschutz just made a few mistakes in his 1st run, and that's what put him into this position. You know, he had the 7th fastest run in the 1st heat, 6th, 2nd, and then the 3rd fastest this morning. So, you know, he's really looking forward. He's only 200ths of a second out of a bronze medal right now. You know, Zubkov didn't have a great run, so again, he's looking forward. He doesn't care what happened behind him.
He was 1100ths in front of Oskars Melbarnis as he sat down. He is 600ths in front as he gets to Horseshoe. Now he starts to open up the gas. 109 kilometers an hour. That is the fastest speed we've seen. 68 miles an hour and accelerating hard now.
Yeah, this is going to be tough to beat. A little bit of pressure on Holcomb now and Langton. They have to have a great start time in order to compete with that great start by Florschutz, as well as an almost perfect run, 145.6.
Astonishing speed, 90.5 miles an hour and a 105.6 slide. And that is nearly a second quicker than he went last time down this track. That's a 7/10 of a second improvement near on. That is his challenge for a medal. That is his marker thrown down. Stephen Holcomb is going to have to go some to beat that. And Florschutz knows it.
Yeah, we mentioned that great start time, and here it is. You can see Florschutz really digging Andreas Bredau in the back of the sled. Going over the hill and into the 1st kink. They look pretty good. Wow, that speed, 145.6, same as his German counterpart, Max Arndt. It's going to be tough for Holcomb to claim that bronze medal, but with that new BMW sled we're going to see next, I think he's got the potential.
Thomas Florschutz and Andy Bredau lead the Bobsled World Championships here in St. Moritz with 3 sleds to go, and the battle is for the bronze medal. Stephen Holcomb, the defending 2-man and 4-man world champion from Lake Placid last year, lies in 3rd after 3 of our 4 heats. Your leaders are going to watch intently to see if the Stevens, Holcomb and Langton can outstart and outdrive them to stay in the medals.
5:07 start time. They improved their start time by 400ths of a second as well.
Well, now this is a sled that only arrived in Europe a week ago Thursday. Holcomb has raced it just once in his life. He has driven it probably no more than now a dozen trips down any ice track. Can he claim a medal with a sled that he barely knows?
They've kept that lead that they have at 700ths of a second right now. But Florschutz had a great bottom part half of the track. It's going to come down to right here, a little bit lower than Horseshoe than some others. 300ths of a second ahead right now.
Smooth, 107.7 to 109 of Florschutz. He's not got the speed yet. Can he dig it out somewhere in these four corners? 400ths of a second. It's less than the blink of an eye. He had great speed in the third heat. Can he find it again? Holcomb needs 145. He's got 145. He's coming
maybe
to
be able
the
to reel
line.
in that 500ths of a second right here.
Be there. It is not there. Florschutz in tears. He cannot believe the redemption. And Mike Kahn doesn't know quite what to say. Holcomb has never finished better than fourth here, and he may not again. Florschutz can't believe it. From the depths of disappointment, Kevin Kuska pulled up with a hamstring in heat one. Florschutz can't believe that he's going to be in the medals. Hop Swiss indeed. Talk about tension. Well, Holky goes to offer his congratulations. The world champion has handed on his mantle for a season at least. Florschutz leads for Germany. Switzerland and Germany still to come. Are we going to have an astonishing fairy book finish where a junior world champion wins, or an even more astonishing dream where a Swiss comes from over a third of a second back in one heat to claim home track gold? That Swiss is Beat Hefty.
The third heat earlier this morning was the only heat where Hefty got out-pushed by Friedrich. I'm not sure that's going to happen again. I know Hefty's pretty upset. 5:02 start time.
Beat Hefty needs to find a minor miracle to take gold here.
That's the initial step, is getting that great start time. If he's going to make up that 3300ths of a second difference, a 5:02 start will be the first step.
The last World Championships here in St. Moritz 2007. Beat Hefty won the gold medal in the four-man as a brakeman for Ivo Rugg. Now he wants to step up here and do it as a driver in the two-man. If the home track can give him a few hundreds, then so be it. A great exit. He is storming away. 108.2. Is this going to be enough for Beat Hefty to close down the young German at the top of the pile?
Wow, this just goes to show what kind of trip that Florschutz had, because Florschutz is still having a faster time and a better trip than Beat Hefty did, despite him ducking his head right there, finding every 100th of a second. 145.6 kilometers an hour.
And he leads the race, but is it enough? A 105.57. It's not a new track record. He may have needed one. Florschutz knows it won't be silver. Eric Allard there knows that the Swiss are in the medals on home ice, and so do the crowd. Kurt, as an athlete, you know, to take a medal anywhere is special. To take a medal on a home track just has that extra something.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun competing in front of your home country on your track. You know, Beat wanted it pretty bad. You know, he's looking forward, ducking his head, doing everything he can, even in the middle of a curve, keeping his helmet nice and low. I know Beat really wants to win here. It's going to be really tough, though, to catch Friedrich.
You think the coach is excited, Eric Allard? I think he is. A bronze medal winner in two-man in his own right in World Championships. But what about this kid? Francesco Friedrich of Germany, 22 years old, from the Altenburg track, from Pirna, just outside of the town of Altenburg. He's the junior world champion in two-man and four-man. And if he's not the future of German bobsledding, I don't know what is.
There's a big difference between junior world champion and senior world champion. There's a lot of pressure on him right now. He's got a huge lead. 498.
Oh my goodness me. That is why Christoph Langen chose not to enter him as a fourth sled with his junior world champion brakeman, because he knew that Janis Becker, who's on the back of the sled, could bring more speed. A start record. Is he going to do what Kaylee Humphries did in the women's race yesterday? Is he going to drive away from the field and claim the world championship with a track record at the bottom as well?
Yeah, with that great start time of 498, pretty good lines coming out of Horseshoe, 5100ths of a second. I really, this is over. I mean, 109.2.
Stunning
icing on the
speed.
cake.
He has added a 1/10 of a second to his lead at every clock. 58 hundredths up. He's gone from 5/10 to 6/10 ahead of Hefty. 146. 145 and a half. He can take his hands off the ropes and wreck it now and still win this. Francesco Friedrich with a track record underlines his dominance here. He is the youngest ever two-man world champion in the history of the sport, going back to Eagles Austria in 1935. Rico Capadrut was also 22, but Friedrich younger still. 22 years and 270 days into his life on this earth. He has claimed the greatest accolade in two-man bobsledding in the 2013 season. Get some money on now for the Olympic Games while the odds are at least remotely in your favour.
You know, if I had a bet, I would have put my money on beat Hefty coming into this competition, but with the run that Friedrich had here, all 4 runs, you know, there's nothing man can do to try to come back from that.
Start record, track record, championship gold medal. Well, there was a bit of a question as to why there were not 4 German sleds. Christoph Langen said that I will be judged by my medals, not who I enter into the race. And he will be judged to have made exactly the right call. And just look at this guy, 22 years old, and he is like a cartoon of musculature.
I always wonder where he would rank among the push athletes as a pusher, not just among the push drivers.
Well, if he goes to the push championships in Groningen in the summer, maybe we will find out. Well, Kurt Tomasevich, like yesterday's women's race with Kaylee Humphries and Chelsea Valois, Francesco Friedrich and Yannis Becker saved the best to last. Start record, imperious driving, and a track record to win the World Championship gold medal. Well, there can't be anybody who can deny that that was just an absolute world-class drive. No questions over his runners yesterday, they were allayed. The jury said there is no question to answer. You can see the giant Yannis Becker has been a big part of that success. Well, Friedrich, the world champion by half a second over Hefty. Thomas Florschutz takes 3rd. Stephen Holcomb, perhaps predictably, ending up in 4th spot. He'll be disappointed with that, but he learns more about the new BMW sled. And there are your top 20 finishers out of a starting field of 38 here in the 2013 two-man bobsleigh World Championships. Well, let's get down then after a breathless and exciting finish here in St. Moritz and see our top 3 finishers.
And giving away not the flowers, but the champagne here in St. Moritz. Andrea Brenko from Mum Champagne.
Thank you.
Give to the 3rd place to the winners. Ladies. So they don't give away the flowers here in St. Moritz. They give away the champagne. Yep. Of course, the beautiful ladies giving the kisses. And okay, guys, take a quick look at and then we'll go over to Team Florschutz. Wow. 2 good runs today, 2 good starts. Are you surprised with the medal?
I think it was 3 good runs. And the 2nd run yesterday and the 2 runs today. And yeah, it's a shame that Kevin Kuske is injured now. Yeah, we hope that we have a good race next week, and today was really good for us.
Congratulations. Great comeback, Thomas. Okay, now over to 2nd place. Team Hefty, silver medal in St. Moritz.
Ja, wir sind sehr glücklich für unsere erste Medaille. Wir sind nur noch happy.
Yeah, well, they're obviously great, happy with the result here in their home track. Congratulations, next week. Now, Team Friedrich, you know now you're the youngest ever pilot in two-man bob to win a world championship. The youngest ever.
What should I say? I don't know.
Well, I think what we're all saying is we're going to see many more.
4 big starts and 4 very good runs, and so we can win here.
Enjoy the moment in St. Moritz. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations. You could see how much it meant to Thomas Florschutz to get onto that podium, to Bert Hefty to be there at home, and Francesco Frugic, a little nonplussed, taking it all in his stride. 22-year-old prodigy, the youngest ever two-man bobsled world championship. Well, my thanks to Kurt Tomasevich for talking us through all the action, to all the camera guys here from FIBT TV who've been out in deep sub-zero temperatures for the last 2 days, bringing you coverage of a fascinating World Championships. On behalf of John Morgan and the rest of the crew, thank you for joining us. Stay with us for so much more action from the Worlds here in St. Moritz.